Hey, everybody, and welcome to the first ever edition of Football Today. You know this dude, Bobby Skinner from Talking Giants. I am Chris Rose, producer Mikey along for the ride as well. And so, Bobby, welcome to our wild world where we discuss 5 topics this time in the football world. We are just so happy that the NFL is back, and basically we're glued to it every day in between now and Super Bowl 58 in Vegas. Are you ready to roll?
Oh, I'm ready. I'm excited. It was fun to have my laptop up during the game and just like writing down notes and then having to condense it because I know I'd want to spend 20 minutes on, the Chiefs putting a tight end at quarterback on third to fourth down.
All right, I guess we will start with the kickoff game out at Arrowhead last night where the defending Super Bowl champs, they didn't have Travis Kelce because of an injury. They didn't have Chris Jones, even though he was in the building, and he held out. Patrick Mahomes basically had to do it all on himself and couldn't get it done. And so the Lions with the big 21-20 win. Let's start by looking at it from the Chiefs angle here. Kansas City, we know that offensively they struggle without Kelce. They don't have a big-name wide receiver. Was this just a blip on the radar, or are there bigger issues here even when Kelce returns?
Well, repeating to win a Super Bowl is hard, but even with this loss, and even if they miss Kelce for like a chunk of the season, I still think they're at worst like the number 3 seed in the AFC. But they did get a little cocky with their offseason, right? Where not only did they not have Travis Kelce in this game, Juju Smith-Schuster was like a 950-yard receiver, and he's not some world beater, but he's like quality NFL talent. Mecole Hardman, who I wasn't even a big fan of, like they lost him. And right now they're out there with, Justin Watson, Rashee Rice, a second-round rookie, Richie James, obviously from the Giants, and it's just now look kind of ugly. But at the same time, there were so many mistakes, and they almost beat a quality team in the Detroit Lions too, where I don't think there's panic, but also it's like they did get a little cocky with their wide receiver room in the offseason.
Well, listen, first of all, I'm still amazed that after all these years, Travis Kelce gets as open as he does. Like, you look at him, and there's always guys you circle on both sides of football, and you're like, that dude can't beat us. And when they traded Tyreek Hill a year ago, I don't care that Juju was there. I don't care that Mecole was there. That's the dude you don't let beat you. And he was beating people and put up a great, great season. Now you take him out 48 hours before kick happens. And I think that the Chiefs were kind of looking at each other and going, okay, how are we going to get this done? I think cocky is probably a real good way of putting this, because now they've got guys sprinkled all over that wide receiver room that haven't done anything, other than be drafted high. Kadarius Toney, they traded for. He was a first-round pick of your Giants. Sky Moore. Sky Moore was on the field, it felt like, for 50 or 55 snaps. He didn't catch a pass. That's a second-round receiver. So, yeah, are we overblowing it? Absolutely, because it was the big game, Thursday Night Football, kicking off the season, the whole bit. But if you're trying to match up with teams like Cincinnati and Buffalo and the New York Jets and maybe the Baltimore Ravens, depending on what that offense looks like, and the Los Angeles Chargers, like, I don't know if this offense will have the firepower that it had even last year without Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned with Kelce, like he's the best tight end in the NFL by like a wide margin and consistently every single year, where it's like you can't even really argue anyone up with him. So obviously he makes the world of difference out there. And if he's out there, they do win this game. And that's without Chris Jones. But I also, like, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're not panicking because, yeah, do you need Kadarius Toney to not drop the ball every time? But even if he just drops 3 passes and one doesn't pop up for a pick 6, they win the game too. So, like, even if it's not a good situation, the receivers won't be as much of a negative effect as they were last night for them.
This is what I hate about the world that we live in. We always tend to focus on the negative. So I do want to give a little bit of love to Dan Campbell and his troops. I loved it. The fake punt was great, right? The NBC showed the graphic that they lead the world in fake punts since 2021. But to do it that deep in your own territory, I thought was pretty ballsy. I loved it. I thought Jared Goff played a pretty solid game on the road. We know that he's carves people up in the dome at home. On the road, he's kind of a coin flip at best, and I thought he was certainly good enough. Let's give the ball a little bit more to Jahmyr Gibbs, please. And it looks like their draft class already, chef's kiss on that. So this is a team that had the offseason hype, the whole bit. Let's get on the train. Let's do this. I think there'll be a real interesting story this year.
Well, in reality, like the Chiefs are a better team than the Lions when they have Travis Kelce and Chris Jones, and Tony doesn't pop up a pick six. But from the Lions' point of view, like good teams take advantage of the mistakes of other good teams, where bad teams let the good teams off the hook for those mistakes. And the Lions are kind of establishing themselves as a good team. They've won 9 out of their last 11 games when you go back to last year. So like you need to take advantage where, if that was the beginning of last year's Lions, I don't think they take advantage of the Kansas City Chiefs, making mistakes like that, and like you mentioned, the rookie class had some good impacts, Campbell breaking up a pass, Brian Branch, obviously with the pick six. And Goff did what kind of Goff does. Like he did what I had a stat, 13 of 16 on in breaking routes, 9 of 19 on the other one. So you still need a little more out of Goff if you want to take that like step to Super Bowl contender. But like I think Lions fans should be really happy. Like, hey, we took advantage of a team making mistakes, and that's what good teams do.
And one other rookie you want to keep your eye on is Sam Laporta, the guy out of Iowa. So far, so good through 60 minutes of football for the Detroit Lions, a team that I think will win that NFC North, in part because I think the rest of the division is meh, as the kids like to say. All right, let's move on to this weekend's games, and we got a full slate on Sunday. We cannot wait. Are you more interested in seeing the Ravens' new look offense with Lamar Jackson and the bag and everything else taking on the Texans, or Sean Payton's arrival, and if it has any sort of impact on Russell Wilson as they take on the Raiders?
To me, I think it's the Broncos by a wide margin. Like the Ravens, yeah, there's going to be new stuff, but we know Lamar's good. Like he was good, very good last year before being injured. He kind of had a down year in 2021, but he's good. But Russell Wilson, like I'm usually late to get off the bandwagon on guys, but like, are we just throwing Russell Wilson away after 1 year of awful coaching and like giving him free reign? Like he's always been a highly sacked quarterback, so it's not like just last year. It's like, oh, see what happens. Like he was always a highly sacked quarterback in Seattle, but he had 40 touchdowns in 2021 before he got hurt the next year. And I think Peyton isn't some like young whiz kid who's going to be scheming up stuff like crazy, but he's going to bring some structure there and not give Russell Wilson free reign of the entire organization. So yeah, like I'm really intrigued on that. That's been my biggest offseason. Like, I can't tell. Is Russell Wilson totally done and broken, or can he be salvaged?
I'm interested. Do the Broncos have extra draft picks that I don't know about? Like every year they're trading hauls and hauls of picks, whether it's for quarterbacks or coaches, right? They give up a bunch of players and a bunch of 1s and 2s for Russell Wilson, and then they turn around and they give up picks, including a first-rounder for Sean Payton. And if you look at some of the coaches, this is not the first time that a coach has been traded, right, for compensation. If you look at some of the guys, it's like John Gruden, Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells, Don Shula, like some of the greatest coaches ever. And Payton already has a Super Bowl on his resume. I think he is walking in here ready to give a big FU to everybody. I think he sat on the sidelines last year in the Fox studios, those cushy Fox studios, watching all the games and realized, God damn, there's a lot of dumb play callers out there. I cannot wait to get back on the sidelines and start taking these guys bit by bit. The one thing I loved, I don't know if you read Seth Wickersham's column on Sean Payton and basically telling Russell Wilson, stop caring about Russell Wilson, Inc., and start caring more about Russell Wilson, the quarterback. Stop kissing babies. You're not a fucking politician. You're here to play quarterback for this team. Clean it up. And the fact that he went into a superstar's face and challenged him, to me, is a big, big deal. And so I can't wait to see if that works.
And I think Russ should, like, kind of take that on. Like, he's got to have some self-awareness to where, like, hey, last year was a disaster and it didn't work. Like, does he have enough self-awareness? Like, because they're going to move on from him if they don't. Like, Sean Payton didn't trade all those first-round picks for Russ Wilson. Do you think Russ Wilson has the self-awareness to not rein in what he did last year?
Russell Wilson feels a little bit like baseball's version of A-Rod. He really does. Like, you could almost picture him. Remember the picture of A-Rod kissing himself in the mirror? Remember that one?
Very much so, yes.
Like, couldn't you imagine Russell Wilson doing that?
Oh yeah, I mean he probably has done it. I mean what was the Mr. Unlimited, which is like who ever told you could put that out there?
So, the fact that he's been challenged, I think is a really good thing for the Broncos organization. Now, do I think he'll get back to peak Russell Wilson? I don't know. It's tricky when you're not 6 feet tall in this league. It gets tougher and tougher and tougher. And at one point, Drew Brees went from this amazing quarterback to a guy who looked like he had barely thrown a pass before. And, your physical limitations can be a bother. In this league, I don't know if that's this Sunday. I don't know if it happened last year and he won't, turn it back up and head back up the mountaintop. But I'm curious to find out. I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't know if Denver has all the talent to really, like, even if Russell Wilson we didn't have these questions. Like, they don't have a lot. Like, Judy might not play. And it's basically just Cortland Sutton and Marvin Mims, the rookie out of Oklahoma, who are there. Now, I think Mims is a great fit for Russell Wilson because he's that deep threat. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. And their offensive line isn't the greatest, but it'd be one thing if they had like the wide receiver core of last year where they had 4 solid guys, but Tim Patrick got hurt. And then Jerry Jeudy may not play. Like, I don't know if there's even enough like good players there to within structure to be an offense that looks really good. So that'll be the question with Peyton is solid to good quarterback play enough for Peyton to really want to move forward with Russ, or does he need to like get back to greatness?
It's a good question. We'll leave it at this. When Russell was at his best in Seattle, he had good wide receivers, not elite, right? I mean, Doug Baldwin was a really good player.
Yeah, Baldwin, Tate, and then Metcalf and Lockett are both good receivers too.
Yeah, they are good, but he didn't have those guys real long. He had Lockett a little longer, but he didn't have DK Metcalf, for years and years and years. He's still relatively young in his career. But the other guys were good, solid football players. They were never guys that you would go, that's a top 15 wide receiver in the NFL. Good.
Yeah.
Solid.
Which is like what Cortland Sutton is with what Judy is. Judy's one of the more frustrating players because you see so many flashes of greatness, but he just never really puts it fully together. But Mims, I think, is a good fit, though, because if there's one thing Russell Wilson hasn't lost is the ability to throw the deep ball accurately, and Mims is one of those. I mean, he averaged 20 yards per catch at Oklahoma, obviously, and not an NFL type offense, but he knows how to like work leverage and get open deep. So I'll be interested to see how like they fit together.
Yep. All right, let's get to Sunday Night Football. I know you're super excited for the Cowboys taking on the Giants. Are you more confident that Dallas will make its first NFC Championship game in nearly 30 years, or that the Giants will prove that last year's playoff appearance was not a fluke?
I think the Giants are going, like, it's more likely they prove that they weren't a fluke because they added a lot of talent, man. Like, you look at like some of the talent they added, like these aren't amazing outside of like Darren Waller, but you look at what they had last year and it was so bad. Like, it's kind of wild how they got through that year offensively with Marcus Johnson and David Sills starting games for them, and Richie James, who had 1 catch for 6 yards for the Chiefs. But honestly, it's more so just because I just don't see the Cowboys being an NFC Championship team. Like, are they more talented than the Eagles or 49ers? No. Do they have a QB who steps up to the challenge in the playoffs? No. And they definitely don't have a coaching advantage over either of those teams, where I just don't have confidence that Dallas is going to do it, despite I think Brandon Cooks being the most underrated addition of the offseason.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know you're excited about your Giants, and you should be. And I think that they're definitely a playoff contender. Now, I still see them as the 3rd best team in that division.
Easily. They're way less talented than the Eagles and the Cowboys.
Right. And I don't think that's, a terrible thing. I think, Philly, I would mark as the team to beat again in the NFC. I would put San Francisco a clear number 2. And then I think Dallas is number 3, but that's only because the rest of the conference sucks so much. I mean, there's just, Seattle could surprise us a little bit, right? They've had a couple of very, very strong drafts, it feels like, in a row. Their secondary in the last couple of years has added a ton of talent there. Geno, I mean, my God, a decade after we all thought Geno was going to be a good NFL quarterback, here he is, a Pro Bowl guy, and he gets an extension. So that might be a team to watch. We talked a little bit about the Lions. They're fine. And somebody has to win the NFC South, but nobody there will contend at all.
Yeah, I think the Seahawks might be like a better team than the Cowboys
Could
right
be.
now. And like I think the Lions are competing. But with the like if the Giants go 9-8, they could even miss the play. But like I think that would be more so like because they have coach like the coaching is good.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen Daniel Jones, make that offense at least be top half of the league with some of the worst talent in the NFL. And now they add a guy like Waller. The if Waller doesn't get injured, like the Giants will be significantly better
I
on
agree.
offense. Like it really comes down to that. Like even if Evan Neal struggles in year 2, they were able to get by with him with no really true weapon outside of Saquon Barkley in the running game, which they still have. It's just I just don't have faith in the Cowboys. Like I told myself last year, because I would always fall for it because they start off so great, and then when they kind of get some film on tape and play the teams that are just as talented or more talented, they just never win those games. And I've kind of told myself I'm not letting the Cowboys trick me anymore because they look amazing when they are playing teams that are lesser talented than them, but they just don't step up to the plate versus the more talented teams.
No, it's interesting. Like they don't get blown out in games against teams that are better. They just don't beat them. And I think that's been really frustrating for Dallas. And you pay the premium when you watch the Cowboys. You expect them to be better because they have stars on the side of their helmets. It's a little bit like the Yankee syndrome. Like just because they're part of a historic franchise that they have to be good. Everybody knows the Dallas Cowboys.
And they're
Everybody
very
knows
talented too. Like they
what
are a very talented team. They have a good quarterback in Dak. It's just the expectation is no longer to just be a good team. It's to take like you mentioned, the NFC Championship, which we haven't seen.
I will say this. I think that Dan Quinn has done a phenomenal job on the defensive side of the football, in part
That
because
defense
he
is
has
nuts.
got the biggest freak in the sport in Micah Parsons, the guy that can do literally anything, right? His rookie year, he gets double-digit sacks, and he barely rushed the passer 55% of his snaps or whatever crazy number it was. They increased that to get well over 80. Most substantial pass rushers are high 80s, low 90s in terms of all you do, go get that quarterback. Whereas we're not going to have you drop in coverage, all sorts of stuff. They stopped getting as cute last year with him. So I'll be curious to see what they do. When you have a weapon like that, sometimes you just want to move him all over the chessboard and stuff. Let him do what he does best.
I
And
agree.
he could be like an old Lawrence Taylor where he just can have such game-changing plays. And there aren't a lot of defenders with the way that football is played these days because it's so heavily slanted toward the offense that can alter and tip the board.
Yeah, like I think Bosa and Garrett are better than him right now. Like I have Parsons at 3, but nobody moves like Parsons in the NFL right now. And again, this was after year 2 of Micah Parsons. There's going to be growth in his game too, just like it was growth in their games. Where I do agree. Like if you want to get a little cute with them on third down, line them up over the center or guard. Don't actually have him playing stack linebacker, which I think they're moving away from, and rightfully so. But yeah, he's someone like that. Just even if you have good tackles, he's someone that like you have to game plan against. Like you can't just like we've got good tackle play. No, you have to be ready for him every single week because he just moves and he makes you pay for every mistake. If you overset by half a step, he's going to kill you inside. You don't get deep enough, he's going to get around the corner on you no matter how athletic you are.
All right, let's have a little fun with this one before we move on to our next question. Is it better for the NFL if Dallas whets your appetite, like makes the playoffs every year and maybe wins a playoff game but loses in the divisional round, or if they make it all the way to the Super Bowl? Like, okay, well, here we go. We can't talk about the narrative of Dallas not making it again.
See, the Dallas has the biggest fan base, so it would be the biggest like Super Bowl like turnout and merch, but they also are the most hated, so people enjoy to hate it. But I think it'd be better for the NFL for them to win because there would be merchandise sold for the next 20 years if they were able to get back and win that Super Bowl, and you'd create legacies for Dak and anybody else on that team, Micah Parsons. So I think it's better for the NFL if they do end up winning it.
But it's fun when they don't make it, isn't it?
Oh, for the fans that aren't Cowboys fans, it's way more. They're the most fun team to hate. Everyone loves to hate them. Like you look at all the big. I remember even going back to like the Facebook meme accounts. They all hate on the Cowboys, which has to drive you nuts if you're a Cowboys fan. But they're the team that everyone loves to hate.
I will say this though, having had a chance to interview Dak the last several seasons, like he's solid. He's like a good dude, solid guy. Like I think he's kind of easy to root for. It's just he's hit a brick wall, man, in the playoffs and the divisional round. It's just like, ugh.
He's a top 10 quarterback, but he has to
Ooh,
step up in the playoffs, right? Where it's
is
like
he?
that level of quarterback, I think people like to throw them away. But where I do think where it's like, all right, I don't want necessarily love this guy being on my team is if they don't step up on the playoffs, which Dak kind of has consistently not stepped up in those situations, which I think is what's the difference maker of being happy with that tier of quarterback or disappointed.
Interesting. You have him as a top 10 quarterback. Uh, so Mahomes and
I think
no
him and Kirk
quarterback.
Cousins are like the same player.
I was going to ask you if you have one drive, Dak or Kirk Cousins, who are you taking?
I'd take Kirk. Like I've seen Kirk do it. Like that. We saw it last year. All the comebacks they had. That defense was horrible, and that wasn't like that. That Vikings offense was really good. Their offensive line wasn't very good outside. Their tackles were good, and Darisaw and O'Neal, but their interior was really bad. Like all season last year, they were relying on rookies and backup centers. He dealt with a lot more pressure than people realize. Where I do think Kirk is better than Dak right now. But I think they're like the exact same tier of player.
I think I agree with that. And that's a weird thing because I think if you were to ask most people, I think they'd be like, "What? Why are you asking me that question?" But I think I agree with you. All right, let's move on. Speaking of quarterbacks, we got Packers and Bears this weekend. Which former first round pick is under more pressure this season? Is it Jordan Love or Justin Fields?
I think Justin Fields might be under more pressure than like any player in the NFL. Like he's been built up so big this offseason, and it's year 3 for him. It's a GM that did not draft him. They added a wide receiver 1 in DJ Moore. And despite him having this floor of a player that is high because of the rushing ability, had one of the best rushing seasons ever. When you watch him drop back as a passer, it's really bad. And it's not because he's not accurate. He's very accurate. He can make every throw that the best quarterbacks can make for the most part. But it's just he doesn't process the field. And you can add DJ Moore and stuff, and that will raise the floor some more too. And I think they're going to really use DJ Moore like crazy. But like I don't know if that coaching staff's going to put him in like a bunch of easy situations. Like he has to take a step forward as a passer, or he's going to be a fun player, a player who wins games and has highlight plays, but not going to consistently win.
And this is year 3 for him, right?
Yes.
This is year
and
3.
Again, second year under a new GM too, which is like it's not even if they should move off of him. If he's bad this year, the GM will move off to save his own job and start a new window with a new quarterback.
Well, and this is the year where you have to show something so that you can then get paid before year 4. And they're nowhere close to that with Justin Fields. There's no way that they can look at his tape and say, yeah, this is the dude that we want to pay $40 million a year to. There's no possible way that can, right?
If they weren't drafting a quarterback, but I think if he's bad this year, they have the Panthers' first pick and their own first pick.
Right.
It's in a year where everyone loves these quarterbacks. Yeah, I don't think they would pick up the option. And if you don't pick up a quarterback's option, it's a death sentence, which I couldn't believe this stat when I looked it up. Daniel Jones is the only a quarterback to ever have his option declined and re-sign with that team.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it hasn't been here that long, the 5th-year option, so it's not like a 40-year history, but like that is kind of a death sentence. But hey, and Fields has all the ability, but like you said, I think there's so much pressure on him, and it's against the Packers. There's a big time rivalry there. You don't have the Packers aren't slated to be this great team, so it's like you're kind of expecting Fields, if all this build up, like he should be good.
I have to admit, though, I am curious about Jordan Love, right? At least when he played sparingly last year, he got in there a little bit. You were like, okay, not terrible. Like he looked okay. But it feels like he's been put on layaway for 4 years.
Yeah, and they've basically put him on a 2-year trial. So even if he struggles to start, if he gets better, like they're not going to move off of him after this year, unless it's just flat out like unplayable type bad. But I do think like with Aaron Rodgers gone, like I think there's not a lot of pressure on him. But like you said, this guy was a first round pick. He was drafted as the predecessor to Aaron Rodgers, and it's just like there's no buzz around him at all.
No, none. I'm rooting for the kid, to be honest with you. I mean, I think with everything that has happened with Rodgers in terms of it feels like he's cultivated this new image. Like, I'm a big brother to all these guys. I'll do whatever I can. I'll give back $35 million. We're all like, what happened to the guy in Green Bay from the last couple of years who was saying controversial shit and felt like, he never felt comfortable since Jordan Love was taken there? And why won't you ever take a skill guy with a first-round pick? And now in New York, it's been nothing but hugs and kisses. Like, I want the old Aaron back, by the way.
I'm also like a history fan, so I think it'd be very cool for like full history of football. If you ask me about like anything outside of World War II, I probably couldn't tell you anything. Where I think it would be just really cool to be like, hey, remember when the Packers had the exact same thing happen twice, where their long-time Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, MVPs, were a pain in the ass at the end, and basically they let him go, and then the quarterback who sat there for 2-3 years comes in and is great. Which Rodgers wasn't even great that first year, and that was coming off an NFC Championship team. So I do think there's gonna the Packers are a patient organization, so I think there's patience there. But I am rooting. Like I want the and both get traded to the Jets after being a pain in the ass. I want the exact same thing to happen for the Packers, and then just to have 45 years of 3 quarterbacks.
Well, I suppose the biggest difference is that Aaron Rodgers, remember, was being discussed as the number 1 overall pick in 2005. Then he ends up sliding in the draft. Whereas Jordan Love, people were like, oh, is he a first-round pick or not? Yeah. That was the buzz around him. And then the Packers ended up trading up to go get him. So it'll be interesting.
That was before quarterback rookie. I remember, didn't Aaron Rodgers say, you would know this better, that he would have taken a pay cut to play for the 49ers? Because this was before there was structure to the rookie contracts. I feel like I remember that headline.
You mean back when he was drafted, or?
Yeah, when he was drafted, because he wanted to stay in California.
Yeah, he wanted to stay there, and right, grew up a Niners fan, a couple hours away, the whole bit, but I think he's fine. He's made it just fine. Speaking of quarterbacks, we finished with the big news from Thursday off the field that Joe Burrow is now the most highly paid player in the NFL. That's right, it was his time, so the salary structure goes up. 5 years, $275 million. His guarantee, $219 million. And 1 penny, by the way. Do we have any idea what the 1 penny's for yet? He hasn't.
I don't know what the Bengals are doing with some of these weird things. Like, so one, they have $27 million more guaranteed than Herbert, which is by a good amount, and the $2.5 million per year. I have a question because I have not figured, why did they drop this during the opening drive? Because I'd be like, oh, it's petty, but no one cared. Like, no one's talking about this because when they dropped about it. Like, I know they have this weird rivalry with the Chiefs. That seemed to me like the worst time to. Like, because it's the 5th topic on our thing. Like, if they did this right now, it would be the biggest news on Friday. We'd stop talking about Chiefs Lions. We'd talk about the Burrow contract.
Right.
And it seems like no one cares.
I don't know. It is strange. To me, the big question is, this was the main building block for the Bengals moving forward financially. They haven't exactly been an organization that has been all about spend, spend, spend. They have paid for some guys that they've kept around. They haven't let a lot of talent walk out the door. It's just they haven't had this type of talent in recent years. But are you worried that they're going to be able to keep this team together now that they paid Burrow this amount of money?
I was looking at some of the cap numbers, and they're kind of in a good spot to do it, right? Like, their free agents after this year are DJ Reader, who's one of the more underrated players, a nose tackle for them. T. Higgins. I cannot see them letting T. Higgins go. Right, like that would just be a horrible PR move. Reader, they could, because it's a defensive tackle, it wouldn't get that much move. And then even like Tyler Boyd, he's gonna be a free agent, but they have Charlie Jones, the rookie out of Purdue, in the wings, and they've got cap space next year. They did let Jesse Bates walk, but they re-signed their linebackers and Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. They're kind of in a good spot to take a 3-4 year run at this. The question, like you said, is are they willing to turn into the team that pushes cap down the road?
Well, we'll see. Because the thing is, they can learn from their brethren up north in Ohio that once you do that, you better be willing to keep doing it and restructure guys and pay cash up front and things of that nature. I don't know if Mike Brown and his family have it in them.
But I just feel like they've had so much success that they're going to be bullied into doing. I mean, they've went to a Super Bowl and an AFC Championship in 2 years. There are a lot of people's like Super Bowl pick this year. Like, even if they don't want to, I feel like they're going to be like bullied into it, right? Like, even
Possible.
like do a baseball. Like, there is no way that the Yankees could have let Aaron Judge walk, and I don't know the finer details on that, but it's like it just, even if they thought it was smart, like injury, age, blah blah, it's like, no, you cannot. Like, we will bully you if you don't do this. Like, it's kind of something they have to do.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of assurances they gave Joe Burrow during those negotiations. But those are things.
A lot of guaranteed money. A lot more guaranteed money than Herbert and Lamar.
Yep.
So they went out of their way to make sure this got done.
Yeah, he got close to Deshaun Watson guaranteed money territory. All right, Bobby, this was good stuff. I can't believe the half hour is come and gone just like that. But we're going to be doing this a couple days a week, which will be fun. Are you ready for Sunday? You just kind of sit in front of a TV and just roll, right?
Oh, yeah. And the Giants play on Sunday night, so I actually get to enjoy the 1 and 4 o'clock games without either being like wrapped up in excitement they won or misery they lost. And I also, I'm, like I mentioned before with the Russell Wilson stuff, I'm very late to the game on everything. And for years, I was like, I'm not watching Red Zone. I'm going to watch a game. Maybe I'll put up 2 screens and watch 2 games. And last year, I started using Red Zone, and I became a Red Zone guy after 10 years of like telling my friends that it was stupid. Now I'm a Red Zone guy now.
Yeah, it's never too late to join the party. Scott Hansen with "It is time for the witching hour."
It's nuts. Like, I really didn't like know about it until last year, where I'm like, oh, this actually is way better. Like, I'm locked in.
It is crazy out there. All right, special shout out to producer Mikey. Thanks for working the 1s and 2s today. For Bobby Skinner of Talking Giants, I am Chris Rose. We will see you Monday here on Football Today.